We have arrived at the top spot, the number one of our 50 greatest players of all time is none other, you probably guessed it, than Garry Kasparov, born in 1963, which makes him 57 years old at present, retired from competitive chess in 2005. Yeah, Peter, I think there's actually little debate for us at least, no? He's the number one.
Yeah. No, there's just nothing to talk about. It's as simple as that. Well, World Championship record, 5 wins, 1 cancelled match, 1 drawn match, and 1 loss. But again, the drawn match with Karpov is in Seville where he keeps his title. So basically 6 World Championship wins like this. And then comes world ranking. He's 21 years and 11 months as number one. I mean, well, that's just incredible, right? So he defends his crown against very tough opposition most of the time, at least, and he keeps the number one spot for almost 22 years. And well, he's dominant, plays all the time at the time as such, and at times he's just so much better. I think there's a famous Bareev quote that said that, how can it be that Kasparov is 90 points ahead of number 2? And Bareev said, yeah, there's something wrong. He should be much further ahead, right? I mean, he was either, close to Karpov and ahead of everybody else, or just ahead of everybody else. So, I mean, I think it's clear he's the strongest player in the history of time in that sense, and he is it at a pretty competitive time.
Yeah, everything is there. He becomes the youngest world champion, I believe, in 1985 at age, whatever it is, 22, which, yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, anyway.
And just sticks around. There's the record you mentioned, I just saw it in month, 225 out of 228 months. He's the clear number one, which, yeah, is good. And there are plenty good players during his time. There is Karpov still very much in his prime in the 80s, in the 90s. You have this new generation to deal with, Kramnik, Anand, Ivanchuk, Gelfand, you name them, while Karpov remains very much formidable player. So yeah, there is very little knock on his record. I'm sure he would have preferred to win in 2000 against Kramnik.
That is, of course, the only thing, right? But I mean, as we debated with Fischer, if you actually don't sort of run away, which we think is not how you should do it in this tradition we have in chess, there's always going to be one loss in the end, right? I mean, and no, that was a heavy loss in a way, and that, of course, you can say that that means there is actually possibilities for someone to overtake him, because there is a slight scar in the end. But I don't think that it in any way makes it debatable if Kasparov should be number one.
No, he also stays the number one ranked player in the world for quite some years after that, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, when he retires, it's right after winning Linares.
And also, when we debate about matches that never happened, but that we would like to have seen, I mean, a Kramnik-Kasparov rematch, it's not like you would consider Kramnik a big favorite, or to say a favorite, right? I mean, he pulled it off once. To pull it off once again would be quite a thing, right? So,
yeah. No, in a way, I don't think there's much to debate because it's such a clear case. No, Lasker has a longer span as world champion, but he's a lot less active. There's a lot less competition. It's a lot less clean cut if he's really the best player at some of these. And yeah, it's just a different time to do that.
If you don't ask you can ask Kasparov to play forever and win forever, but except from that, he has done everything you can do.
Yeah. No, the only guy who could match him is if Magnus has another 10 years like the 10 years he's had, then we have something to talk about, but that we can do in 2030 when we redo this.
Yeah. So, but again, now we praised him insanely. If we have to talk him a bit down, how is the chess legacy? It's a bit sort of smaller, right? I mean, we sort of compared to Kramnik in that sense. His legacy towards openings and towards a lasting influence on how chess is played. You think that I'm diminishing him now, or is it actually vanished a bit?
It's hard to say. You could also say he was so far ahead of his times in terms of methods of preparation that he was just maximizing his chances by playing the King's Indian and the Scheveningen, which probably he also felt that in order to make a draw, whatever, the Queen's Gambit might be a better choice, but he was maximizing his score, and I don't think you can hold that against him necessarily.
No, I get your point that he was trying to win tournaments with a ridiculous score, and to be able to do that, he had to put life into Knight of King's Indian and things to outplay his opponents. It's true that when it came to, well, he did it in later matches with Karpov, but I think because, as you said, because it was a good strategy, not because that was the only thing he could do. So it's probably me who is diminishing Kasparov as a very complete player in that sense. He was just trying to optimize in a way, right? And when he needed to be solid, he definitely could do it. Still, maybe it's somehow his Achilles to a certain extent. I mean, Kramnik put a bit into that, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, also, I don't know, his legacy, he was so dominant in the openings with these ideas and concepts that it's not clear to pinpoint at what, because he's contributed so much all over the place, and he basically just felt years ahead in that area of everybody else, which I'm not sure that works, because nowadays the engines are so much stronger in 2020 where it's much easier to get the information. But yeah, I don't think we can hold that against him.
No, that's true. He pulled off incredible preparation at some point where engines were only briefly sort of entering into it, right? I mean, well, you mentioned Aliehin's work ethics. I think you can say the same about Kasparov, right? That he was working incredibly hard on the game.
And also that's a minor thing, but legacy-wise, he's also, after his career, written all these books, My Great Predecessors, which are, yeah, I guess must-reads for every chess player out there. He's always written about his matches and books along the way, and Varmacha, Test of Time, and so on. It's good stuff.
Successful trainer at times as well. I mean, if anything, well, he's lost a FIDE election, but he's not the only one on this list we have here who's done that, right? Sort of, no, I mean, also, well, he's an amazing character, right? I mean, even after retiring, he has stayed incredibly active. He's heavily involved in politics, for instance, and such, but you say also involved in the chess world as a writer, as a trainer, and even a politician and such, right? It's incredible personality.
Yeah, in a way, there's not much to talk about, strangely, because we feel it's obvious he's number one, and this could change in the future.
Yeah, generally, we think a lot is up for debate, but this one is not, right? It's just, case closed, basically, right?
No, like, for example, Lasker, Ayehin, Karpov, you can talk me into any order, and I think you have a point, but number one and also number two, I don't think there's much to debate, really.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So,
let's look at how he became the world champion.
Yeah, this is 1985, the second match against Karpov. Well, a draw was enough for him here. He has
well, exactly. He needs a draw to become the world champion, and he thought, why don't we go for a complex Sicilian? That sounds like the obvious solution, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this was bravado or it was just his main repertoire. No, this is what they were debating.
It's a young man with confidence. I mean, and rightly so. He's going to be the world champion in a few hours. So, typical Scheveningen, right?
Yeah, this was a big debate of the times. And also later in my youth, this position I'm very, very familiar with, like knight b3, b6, g4, bishop c8, and so on. These were all
somehow evaporated from the focus, right? I mean, computers, everything changed and such. And also it's not so easy to get here these days.
No, this is what they were debating those days. White gets a serious attack on the king side, but Kasparov...
When you look at it now, I mean, Kasparov, a draw or win is the same. This looks so risky, right? I mean, it's,
Rook e7, this maneuver got a lot of praise. I haven't checked it with recent computers actually, but this Rook e7...
I think I did once, and it was at least in the conversation. If not, it was just clearly the best. I forgot. But it's not like it said anything particularly wrong.
It's preparing for f5 by putting rooks on the e5.
Also that White wants to play f5 at some point, right? I mean, well, you are aiming for h7, but then you can always do knight f8. But at some point, f5, f6 could be crushing. But
There was some position there was better for white. No, I'm not sure if it was F5 here or on the previous move. There was something.
I forgot if you had to do bishop d4 at some point.
Yeah.
So king g1 I think is
feels slow.
Is too weak, but again.
Karpov sticks.
But also we have to remember they played one match which was cancelled for, I don't know, how was it, close to 48 games or maybe exactly 48 games. Now they're playing a new one, and everything is going to be decided now. I mean, we have been at some World Championship matches as coaches, but the nervousness at this point must be just absurd, right?
Also the sheer exhaustion. Kasparov also in great shape and he's young, but to play these games forever against the same opponent for both sides must have been so taxing. I can't even imagine. Kasparov sacrificed a pawn here, but now he has the king side under control. And is
how do you keep your head functioning under this kind of pressure? I don't get it. I mean, he plays beautifully. No. G5 also.
Yeah, Karpov, of course, has to avoid a move repetition here. Rook G3, Knight H5 doesn't help, so he takes risks and he gets out-countered quite soundly.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's an insanely good game. I mean,
No, we should also mention it's not just the openings we've been praising with Kasparov, just his feel for the initiative, his ability to calculate and get the
He's
job.
also very good in the end game. I think someone was pointing out he just doesn't get there very often because, I mean, he beats them early and such. I think, if anything, his dominance meant that, well, he lost some of the skills because he didn't need them. I mean, you have to train the skills at some point. Yeah, knight d4 check wins the rook on e6, right? And I think, maybe Karpov thought for a minute or two to sort of realize that he was no longer the world champion and resigned, right?
Yeah, no, and also, since very early at this hardest school, you can go through playing hundreds of games against Karpov, who's a fantastic technician and game player. He had to master all these things. It's just they didn't show up that often in his games. But to point at clear weaknesses, we debated Karpov only being number 6. I mean, their rivalry still stands out as maybe the most fascinating in the history, right? Because of, how long time it took and also how close to some extent was in strength, at least in the beginning, right? I mean, they pushed each other to the maximum, as you said. That's probably what made Kasparov such a great player, maybe both of them in a way. Right? I think someone was telling an anecdote that they were not on too good terms, but they were the only one they could actually speak reasonably with about chess. So that they would discuss at least. I have no idea if that's true. But. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I do know Kasparov belongs on the number 1 spot. And if you've made it here watching all 50 or however many videos, if we do some bonus stuff, it has been. Thank you for watching. It's been fun. Apologies for our lack of real knowledge about chess history, which shines through in every video. But it's been a fun project to do. And obviously, the nature of the beast is not everyone will agree on everything. I learned a lot. I enjoyed it. So thanks, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Jan. It's been a pleasure.
See you guys.